Started now. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Los Altos School District Board of Trustees to order. A recording and/or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, and the recording and/or broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. I will now take the roll. Steve Taglio.
Here.
Jessica Spicer.
Here.
Vladimir Ivanovic.
Here.
Brian Johnson.
Here.
And I, Waishali Sirke, am here too. Everybody's here. We'll move right along. Agenda approval. Would any board members like to provide comment on the agenda? No? Okay. May I please have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Jessica. Motion to approve tonight's agenda was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We shall now do a roll call vote. Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I do vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. On to the closed session report. No action was taken in closed session tonight. Superintendent's update. Mr. Baer?
Yes, good evening. A few items for tomorrow, or for tonight. First of all, we've been last week and this week been celebrating our teachers and staff and Staff Appreciation Week, and really recognizing what an incredible job they have done this year. It has been, as we all know, a tumultuous year, and I think we are and have been providing as good as any district for our students. So very proud of the work they have done. So happy to celebrate them. Thanks to all of you who are on here tonight, especially. Wanted to make sure the board knew that transition work is underway. As you know, Mrs. Bhavna Narula is taking a director position in a nearby district, which leaves an opening at Block. And Mr. Greg Land, who has been at Santa Rita for 8 years, is going to be moving over to Block. Those announcements have been made, and transition meetings are underway. Be meeting with the staff soon. And we do have a parent meeting set up for next week for him to have the opportunity to meet the broader Block community. So, but all going well there. That of course will leave a vacancy at Santa Rita. And so the Santa Rita principal position has been posted. And tomorrow we will be holding input meetings for the staff in the afternoon and for the Santa Rita parent community in the evening tomorrow. So Aaron and I will be attending those. I think Sandra might be attending as well to help out, but looking forward to those meetings. So still end of the year, getting closer, but still a great deal going on. So that's it for now.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Jeff. All right, we're going to move on to the consent items. Would any board members like to provide comment on the consent items E1 through E6? Nope. Okay, well then may I please have a motion to approve consent items E1 through E6?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Jessica. Motion to approve consent items E1 through E6 was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We'll now do a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. On to employee requests to address the board from the Los Altos Teachers Association, Kate Schermerhorn.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I was just thinking to myself that it's hard to believe we're nearly to mid-May already. I was writing the date on my math notebook this morning, and I don't know how we got here, but it both feels like the blink of an eye and like we've had a million years all in one fell swoop. As Jeff mentioned, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we would like to thank our students and their families and the district for their thoughtful and heartfelt signs of appreciation. I know that teachers across the district were flooded with notes and flowers and other gestures, and I also know that it raised many teachers' spirits and brought smiles to our faces. In LATA news, we did just conclude our exec board elections for the upcoming year. I am honored to be stepping into the position of the LATA president for the upcoming year. And on the exec board with me, we are going to have Brian Conti and Kaylee Salyers as our two vice presidents. Our secretary is going to be Allison Gentile, and our treasurer is going to be Grace Choi. So we are all very excited to be coming together and continuing to work together and with the board and the district for the hopefully calmer year ahead, fingers crossed. So that's all I have to report for today, but thank you again. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate, and congratulations to the incoming leadership of the LATA board. Awesome.
Ditto.
California School Employees Association, I don't think we have anyone to speak from them tonight. So we will move along. All right, community comments. This time is reserved for citizens and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make brief comments or ask clarifying questions. All right, so we will now take public comment. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. Just wait a minute or so. Any requests to speak during public comment? Okay, I don't see any, so I'm gonna close public comment and move right along. School reopening update. Staff will provide an update on the current status of our school reopenings, COVID positivity rates, and year-end events. Mr. Bear.
Yes, good evening again. Thanks, Marcy, for bringing that up. This is a fairly short slide deck this evening. I just want to update you on a few things to keep you abreast of what's happening. So next slide. As you know, all grade levels are back. K-6 are back 5 days a week, and junior high school is back 2 full days a week, and 3 asynchronous days, 2 with live instruction. Next slide. We have not had any positive cases over the last 2 weeks. So that's been great. That really does fall in line with what we understand about the broader community around us. But we're pleased that we haven't had any cases in the last 2 weeks reported. And just a statement again about the great work that all of our LASD staff have done in both drafting and adhering to the safety protocols, and that actually goes for our families as well, our parents and students. We have been doing a terrific job. I'll also point out, though they are not here tonight, this is the week we celebrate our school nurses, and we do have 2 fantastic school nurses leading. We have health support folks at each of our sites, but our 2 people leading the charge, Monica and Mary, have just done a fantastic job through this year, and we really couldn't have done it without their expertise. Next slide. Again, I am not going to read these, but these really are those principles that we are following to ensure safe operation during this time. Next slide. So I want to update you on graduations and promotions. We are nearing the end of the year. As Kate mentioned just a moment ago, I did appreciate her saying that it was in a flash and also the longest year on record, both at the same time. I agree with that. Wednesday, June 9, that's our last day of school. We're going to have graduations at Egan and Block as we normally do. A bit of a change this year, though, in order to have additional space because of the requirements from California Department of Public Health and Santa Clara County Public Health Department. Egan is actually going to hold their graduation ceremonies at Los Altos High School on the football field at 11 a.m. And Block is going to hold them not at 1 like they normally do, but at 5, hoping to beat the heat a little bit since all of the families are going to be sitting out on the artificial turf field. It can get a little toasty out there. So they're actually going to have theirs at 5 p.m. Mount V Los Altos High School District has been fantastic to work with regard to this in allowing this to happen. You've probably heard, but they are actually graduating Mountain View and Los Altos down at PayPal Stadium, formerly Avaya, where the earthquakes play. So they're happy to let us use their facilities. So we look forward to that. It'll be a special venue for a special year. So we look forward to celebrating that. Also on Wednesday, June 9th, the schools will be, the elementary schools will be having their promotion ceremonies in the mornings. I will give you specific times a little bit later, but those are being worked out right now. We have some conflicts we're trying to work out at different schools with regard to timing and families that are split and things like that. So we are working on that right now. But June 9, as usual, will be a busy day for us. It's nice to get back to somewhat a little bit more normal with regard to graduation, since last year we really weren't able to do a great deal on this day. Next slide. And I just want to reiterate and affirm that the 2 big items that we are working on right now, in addition to finishing out strong this school year, Sandra's office is doing a great deal of work in that first item, planning for summer school. There's a lot that goes into that. It's a bit bigger this year. It's a bit longer this year. So there's a lot of work going on with regard to that right now. And then also looking forward to the start of next school year, where we anticipate having all grades, all school sites back on campus 5 days a week for the full school year. That's what we are going. That's what we're going in planning on and planning around. And we continue to get pieces of updates from public health with regard to what might be expected next year, but we haven't got a broad picture yet. So we're going forward looking at, if it were with the protocols we have in place right now, what would that look like? So again, a lot to do there, but we are working on that. And I think that's my last slide. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anyone have questions for Jeff on the presentation? Vladimir?
Jeff, could you say a word about the the personal protective equipment requirements for the graduations at the high schools?
I can come back with more detail on that, Vladimir. Let me do that. I know there will be limited number of guests and yeah, PPE required. So I'll bring back more detail on that.
Any other questions? Jeff, I just had a quick question for you. You're talking about the June 9th activities for our K through 6 or K through 7, I should say. Will our students who are in virtual school also have some sort of end of the year activities,
Yes.
celebration. Okay, good.
They will as well. I'll get you details on that too.
Great, thank you. All right, we will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So we'll just see if anybody raises their hand. Anyone for public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, Jeff. All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. Mrs. McGonigal will present the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan, which highlights the Learning Recovery Plan and proposed expenditures for the 2021-22 school year. Mrs. McGonigal.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm glad to be here tonight to talk about our plan to spend our Extended Learning Opportunity Grant dollars. I'm going to give you another long phrase that seems to be used interchangeably, which I wrote down at the bottom here, which is Learning Recovery Plan. So some people might be referring to their Learning Recovery Plans. That really is the plan for this particular bucket of money. So next slide, Marcy. Marcy uploaded for me not only these slides, but the actual plan itself. So I will refer to that towards the end, but wanted to make sure that you had a chance to see both. So the Extended Learning Opportunity Grant is really a fairly large sum of money. So our district is getting about $2.28 million that needs to be used by the end August 31 of next school year to develop this learning recovery program. It's a post-pandemic response to support students. You can see some details here. It must be used to provide supplemental instruction. So we're not talking about shoring up our core program. It's supplemental in addition to core program. Make sure that it includes support for social and emotional well-being of our students, knowing that many students have been isolated, having less social opportunities, and might be experiencing some mental health needs. And then the third round of that is really about meals and snacks and nutrition, knowing that families have been hit hard during the pandemic. Many families have lost jobs or are suffering some economic disadvantage, and we want to make sure that our students have support in those three areas. Next slide. There we go. So the plan the grant really identifies, it begins with a very specific list of students and then really broadens from there. So we want to make sure that we are paying attention to our low-income families, our English learners, foster youth and homeless students, any other students who are at risk of a few different things here. Disengaged students really talks about those students who haven't been attending when we were in distance learning, or not attending in person, or not showing up to their meets or what have you. And then it broadens from there. Students who are below grade level, and students who did not enroll in kindergarten this year, but may then enroll next year. And finally, any student that our certificated teachers really identify as students in need of that supplemental instruction, social and emotional supports, or meals and nutrition, that these are the students we serve. So we're really looking broadly at our student population and making sure that we identify students with these needs and that we have a plan to respond to those needs. Next slide, Marcy. So this money, Randy often talks about different buckets of money. Some have broader abilities to be spent. This one is fairly narrowly defined. There are actually 7 buckets for allowable expenditures. And for us, you notice here that I crossed off one. It's really specific to high school about credit recovery. So if you look through, these are really what the monies can be spent for. And I won't read them through to you because I went into some detail within the plan. But it's really about extending time. It's about specific supports for academics, specific supports for social and emotional, technology, anything that helps students access the learning that they may have been denied throughout this pandemic. Next slide. So in development of this plan, along with the 3 other plans that I'm currently writing or updating, we always want to make sure that we're getting broad stakeholder input to, that we're not on an island developing a plan that nobody thinks we actually need. So we had the greatest response ever to our LCAP survey, and working with the county, they really talked about how our LCAP and this ELO plan are complementary plans. So looking at the specific feedback from our LCAP survey, from our families, from our staff, from our students has been great. I actually brought together a group of teachers and principals for 2 different days, 2 different groups, to really have some small group discussions, especially wanting to hear from our teachers. What are you noticing? What do you believe the needs will be for next year? We certainly know how we've responded this year, but as students are coming back more full time, I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what those needs may be. And then as we developed our plan, we actually brought in our entire leadership team in groups of 2 to have a little field trip to the CNI office to collectively build this learning recovery plan to make sure everybody feels like they have a piece in it. And throughout that, we've been talking to some different folks as well, more anecdotally around what the needs are, our intervention team, our EL team, just to make sure that we're addressing all of our needs that we have identified thus far. Next slide. So the plan itself, you have a copy of our written plan, just like the LCAP, it looks very similar, but this is the yellow plan. So the plan itself is broken up into different components. There's a description of the plan that talks about how will we identify students, how will we inform parents if their child is identified as a student in need of intervention or social and emotional supports or intervention. And then it goes through those 6 buckets that we're using and gives you some details about how we will be spending the money there. And then the expenditure plan itself breaks it down into dollar cost. So you could see how much we're allocating for each of those 6 different buckets. I put in this slide over on the right there. It's really terrific, and I'm appreciative of the state. We have the resources right now to be flexible. We know we've spent some of the money so far. This money is allowable for this school year and through next school year. But we know we have the finances. This is our plan. And as our plan turns into reality in the next school year, when we get some additional assessment data in this spring, all of that, I feel very confident that we have the resources necessary to be able to flex and adapt based on the needs that students are presenting next year. Next slide. I think that might have been my last slide. So I'm very happy to talk and answer any questions you have or to talk about in more detail the plan itself. But tonight you do need to take action. So I'm recommending that you adopt our plan as outlined.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandra. Board members, do any of you have questions about the presentation? Nope. Okay, great. We will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So just see if anybody raises their hand. Anybody for public comment on this agenda item? Okay, great. Any additional requests to speak? Okay, so it looks like we only have one for tonight. Thank you, Nicole.
Our first speaker is Nicole Evans.
Hi, this is Nicole Evans, and my question about this plan is whether or not this will apply to helping support students that are already identified with a learning difference or disability and have an IEP. I just asked because it says students that are below grade level, and I didn't know if that applies to current IEP students or whether or not that would be for students that are now behind because of all the disruptions in the school year. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Sandra, do you want to comment or?
Sure, I'm happy to. So this money really is in response to the pandemic, but I don't want to say it's a cut and dry yes or no. The case manager for your child or any child who has an IEP or a 504 will really determine whether or not there has been an additional need has arisen due to the pandemic. And then we'll determine what supports might be needed around that. Certainly we'll support any student where that need arises, but typically a student who has an IEP is getting those supplemental services through special education already as part of their services.
Thanks, Sandra. Okay, board members, would any of you like to provide comment? Vladimir?
Yes, Sandra, one of your slides mentioned meals and snacks.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had sort of ideas or plans about how you might roll that out or implement that. I don't expect that the need will be huge, but there might be some students who actually really do need that sort of help.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Randy wants to comment more, but we have been, we have increased our services throughout the pandemic, right? And we've talked about continuing those meals throughout summer, knowing that our families in need that additional service. So this money will help pay for that. Anything to add, Randy?
No, I think that's the basics. And we've also had meals that would, not just lunches, but some breakfast, be able to provide breakfast and some weekend meals for families, Vladimir. And our plan to use the monies, as Sandra said, goes back through this year as well as forward through next year.
Thank you. I view this as the camel's nose under the tent. This is the beginning of community service schools. And I'm glad to know that we're taking that on.
Anyone else? Nope. I just wanted to.
Steve has a question, I think.
Oh, Steve, sorry.
That's okay, I didn't move fast enough. I know that I brought it up before, and I'm assuming this could be worked in underneath the grant, but I'm very concerned about the children who have been in virtual school now for 18 months that chose the virtual school permanently. Will we be able to tap some of these funds to help them transition back into live school?
Absolutely.
And we have to wait for them to start school to do that, or are we going to be able to address that before the school year starts or as the school year starts?
Well, I think it would depend on what exactly you're referring to. I can tell you that we've, part of our plan with the additional support bucket is around having some additional behaviorists on our campuses. I know all of our principals are seeing some rising behavioral needs from students. If you remember, they have been with their small cohort of kids all year. Those are the same, it was 8 to 15, and now it might be 20 to 30 students that they get to play with each and every day. And it may or may not be their, best friend. And so there's some additional behaviors. So we will be including some supports on that. And this spring, in the next 2-3 weeks, we're doing our spring assessments, and that will really give us academic information about how to respond to our students who are virtual. And I'm working with our principals right now to purchase, which I don't know was explicitly detailed on here, but some social and emotional curriculum that is like a base curriculum for our sites. Again, to kind of rebuild that community as we start the school year. Several of our schools have kind of started piloting that this spring. And then once we have everybody back 5 days a week next year, it's really making sure that we have a strong foundation within our community at each of our schools.
And as I think the ones I appreciate that, and I know that definitely bring kids back in larger groups has been interesting. Would be a way to phrase it from what I heard from teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week. But the group I'm really concerned about is the ones that have been in the virtual school the entire time.
Yep.
And are we going to try to do anything to reach out to those children and families about transitioning in before the school year starts? Because I think they might need a little more hand-holding. I would need more hand-holding if it was me,
Right.
but definitely would hope we would have something planned for them.
Yep, I will add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Does anyone else have any questions for Sandra? All right, I don't have any questions, but I do want to just say that I feel very reassured that we will have the resources to be flexible and nimble should additional needs arise as the school year goes on. So that makes me feel really good that we have the means to do that. All righty, so may I please have a motion to approve the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jessica. Any further board discussion? Okay, seeing none. Motion to approve the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We'll do a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. This is wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.
Excellent, thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to our next agenda item, 2021-22 Negotiating Interest for Los Altos School District with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 103. Negotiating interest for CSEA will be shared. The Board of Trustees will also review and consider approving the district's negotiating interest with CSEA. Mr. Kenyon.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. You'll recall that we negotiated with our teachers a 2-year agreement this year and next year. And we, for a procedural reason, only negotiated a 1-year agreement with the classified group, pending a second round of negotiations. And this is sort of signaling the onset of the second round. We have to sunshine their proposals in our interests. And so you see that as back up to the agenda. And your action tonight would be just to approve our interests, and we can go from there and set a meeting and hopefully start and finish our negotiations with that group.
Great, thanks so much, Randy. Board members, does anyone have a question for Randy? To clarify anything? Okay, great. We will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So just give it a few seconds to see if we have any takers for public comment. Any requests to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Would any board members like to provide comment on this agenda item? Nope. Okay. Well, in that case, may I please have a motion to approve the 2021-22 Los Altos School District negotiating interests?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jessica. Any further board discussion? Excellent. Okay, motion to approve the 2021-22 Los Altos School District negotiating interests was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We'll now take a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks so much, Randy. Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item. Resolution number 20/21-13, authorizing the issuance of tax and revenue anticipation notes, or TRAN. The Board of Trustees will consider adopting a resolution authorizing the issuance of short-term borrowing, TRAN, tax and revenue anticipation notes. Mr. Kenyon, back to you.
Yes, you will recall that every spring we go through the process of bringing a resolution forward to you. We have cash flow issues in our general operating fund, our general fund, because the primary source of revenues for our operations are property taxes, and property tax revenues don't start coming in until December in bulk. There's some small amounts that come in prior to that. And we have expenses starting in July. So we have a cash flow issue, and the TRAN borrowing enables us to have the cash short term to get through until we get property tax revenues. And it is a borrowing that's for 1 year or less. So we will pay the borrowing off by the end of 1 year from now, or 1 year from the end of our fiscal year. So you'll notice that the amount that we've put on the resolution tonight is a not to exceed 25 million. Last year we borrowed 17 million. We're thinking it'll be in the 17 to 20 million dollar range, depending on, there's some technical reasons as to how much you can borrow depending on the cash flow and how the numbers work out in particular months. We think we'll be in the 17 to 20 million dollar range, but we always give a little leeway and a not to exceed amount, and that's what you're seeing tonight. So I'm putting this forward to you for your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Randy, how unusual is it for us to do this?
We do it every year, and have been doing it for years and years and years. It's not unusual at all.
Excellent. I was going to make a bad joke about payday loans, but I'll keep it to myself. Okay. Any board members, do you have any questions for Randy before we go to public comment?
Yeah, one quick question, which Randy, you may or may not be able to answer, or just give me a general number. How much is this costing us in terms of interest that we pay? I assume this is a benefit for being a community-funded district.
It is, and it depends on the year, Vladimir. Some years we actually make money on the interest earnings compared to the interest that we owe, based on the last couple of years, interest rates are really low, but so are our interest earnings. So it probably costs us in the neighborhood of maybe $50,000 last year. So I'm estimating somewhere in that ballpark this year, maybe a little more.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Any other questions for Randy? Okay, great. We will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So, any requests to speak tonight on this agenda item? Okay, I don't see any hands going up, so I'm going to close public comment. Board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item? Okay, Then may I please have a motion to approve resolution number 20/21-13, authorizing the issuance of tax and revenue anticipation notes.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jessica. Any further board discussion? Nope. Okay. Motion to approve this resolution number 20/21-13, authorizing the issuance of tax and revenue anticipation notes was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We'll now take roll call vote. Steve? Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Randy. Okay, we have another resolution. Next agenda item, resolution number 20/21-14, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bond anticipation notes. The Board of Trustees will consider approving a resolution providing for the issuance and sale of 2021 general obligation bond anticipation renewal notes in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $79 million. Mr. Kenyon, back to you.
Yes, you will recall that in order to help purchase the 10th site in October of 2019, we issued some general obligation bonds. I think it might have been 65 million, 55, or I think it was $65 million worth, and $79 million worth of bond anticipation notes. Those bond anticipation notes were to come due fairly soon in 2022 and 2023. I believe it's August of both years. Our thinking was that we would be getting proceeds from the sale of development rights through this TDR program that we have with the city of Mountain View. And because of the, I have a helper, because of the COVID pandemic, the process of TDRs moving forward through the city of Mountain View has slowed down significantly. So we're expecting we need more time before some of those proceeds will materialize. Thus, we're pushing out we're asking you to extend the bands out to their maximum length, which is August or October of 2024. And the resolution tonight before you would enable us to do that. So I'll turn it back to you, Shali.
Thank you, Randy. Do any board members have questions for Randy before we take public comment? Nope. Okay. We will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So we'll just see if there's any requests to speak. Okay, seeing no requests to speak, no hands raised, I'm going to close public comment. Board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item? Okay. Okay, in that case, may I please have a motion to approve resolution number 20/21-14, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bond anticipation renewal notes.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jessica. Any further comment, further discussion? Okay. Motion to approve resolution number 20/21-14, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bond anticipation renewal notes was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. We'll now do a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And thank you, Randy. Wow, we are just flying tonight. Awesome. Okay. Next agenda item. Change to 2021 board committees and appointments. The Board of Trustees will consider a revision to the 2021 trustee committee assignments. Mr. Bear.
Yes, Shelley, I'll turn this over to you in just a moment. There was a request from Shelley to change one committee appointment. I have spoken to Steve. He's tentatively agreed to do that. But Shelley, I'll let you explain.
He may take it back once he knows how many committees I've joined on chat. But anyway, yeah, so this is a little hard for me because all of you know how much I love CHAC and respect CHAC as an organization. But the organization that I actually work for, Manzanita Works, we're going to be moving into launching a mental health initiative. And that may change our professional relationship with CHAC. And thus far, there hasn't been any sort of conflict of interest. And I think I would just like to be very conservative and overly cautious. And I thought that it would be best for me to step off the CHAC board so as not to have any future conflicts of interest. I do want to reiterate that this has nothing to do, my decision has nothing to do with CHAC itself. It's a wonderful organization. So therefore, I spoke to Jeff and asked him to put this on the agenda tonight, that I would like to roll off the CHAC board. So, and it looks like Steve has graciously stepped up.
Perhaps a motion to do so from someone?
Okay, sorry. Okay, do we take public comment on this? Okay. Okay. Well, first I'll ask board members, do you have any questions about this? Okay. We will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. And we'll just see if anyone wants to say anything about this. Okay, I don't see anyone who wants to make public comments, so I'll go ahead and close public comment. Board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item? Vladimir.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if anybody wants to take over one of the 2, 3 things that I have, 4 things that I have down there, I'm totally open to that.
Okay. Any other comment? Well, I do feel kind of guilty unloading CHAC.
Oh, don't feel guilty.
Vladimir, if you really any one of your 4?
Any one of the 4 is fine.
Okay.
Is there one that you have your eye set on?
Well, I've recently I've been attending more of the School Boards Association meetings. So
done.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to do 2 separate motions? One for CHAC, one for SBA? Or do we just lump it all? Yes, we do. Okay.
I think you should just do 2 to make it clean.
Okay. Then, okay, and help me phrase this motion. So then, can I make the motion? Or does someone else? Okay, so I would like to make a motion to replace me, Shelley Sirke, with Steve Taglio as on the CHAC board as the JPA representative from LASD to the CHAC board.
Second.
Thank you, Vladimir. Any further discussion? Okay, so the motion to replace me, Shelley Sirke, with Steve Taglio on the CHAC board was made by me, Shelley Sirke, and seconded by Vladimir. We'll now do a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Steve. Well, so does this now, just a quick question, does this now take place like effective immediately? So like, okay, great.
Correct.
So Shelley, I'd like to move to replace myself with you on the Santa Clara County School Boards Association as the representative for LASD.
Thank you. Vladimir, may I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Thanks, Jessica. Any further discussion? Okay, so motion to replace Vladimir with myself as the representative to the Santa Clara County School Boards Association was made by Vladimir and seconded by Jessica. Any further discussion? Okay, in that case, we'll take a roll call vote. Steve? Steve?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving along, our next agenda item. Oh, this is a good one. Board meeting date change. The Board of Trustees will consider changing regular board meetings from the second and fourth Mondays of each month to the first and third Mondays of each month. Should the board enact this change, it would require an adoption of a revised board meeting calendar, as well as a revision to board policy. As a result, this item is brought forward for discussion at this meeting. Should direction be given to proceed with the change, staff will bring both a revised regular board meeting calendar and board bylaw 9320 to the next board meeting. Mr. Bear.
Yes, thank you. So at the last meeting, the board inquired about changing from, as I said, as you read, from the second and fourth to the first and third Mondays. Generally, it never works out perfect, but generally. So brought forth a calendar that that shows that. As also you mentioned, second and fourth are referenced in the bylaws currently. So if we are to change, we'll need to update the bylaws as well. All very doable, but we would do that officially at the next meeting. Attached to the agenda item this evening was a calendar that shows what the meeting dates would look like should we move to the first and third Mondays. And I know there were a couple of questions that popped up, so I will let the board ask about those. One I will point out, I talked to Marcy about this, the December meeting is on the second Monday. It's on the 13th rather than it remains on the 13th as it was already. The reason for this is really about practice in election years, because when we install or swear in a board member, it has to be done after the 10th of December. The 10th of December. So I think the practice of keeping the meeting on that second Monday or the first Monday that falls after the 10th of December would be a good, a consistent practice to adhere to. But so that's just one of them. I know there are a few questions. So Shelley, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Board members, any questions on this before we go to public comment? Brian?
My only question is whether August 2nd is too early for a board meeting, given that staff has to prep in advance, and so that pushes that into July. And I know the district office, I think, traditionally doesn't even reopen until August 1st, if I'm remembering that correctly. So that's my general question. And I have another comment that I'll hold until after we hear public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, can I respond to that, Shelley?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that is an early date. I'll agree with you on that, Brian. I think for the purposes of this calendar, it might make most sense to either have one meeting in August and have that on the 16th, or have a meeting on the 16th and the 30th, because I know there's a potential problem with the next meeting as well in September, the conflict with a with a holiday. So we can talk about that though when we get into full discussion.
Any other questions for Jeff? Okay, I'm going to open this up to public comment. We'll now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. All right. We'll just give it a few seconds to see if anybody raises their hand. Okay, I don't see any requests for public comments. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Board members, let's open it up for discussion. Brian.
So the other half of my comment was that, so this year, September 7th, as it turns out, is Rosh Hashanah. So I wouldn't be able to be there. So if other board members don't object, I'd like to propose that we move that September 7th meeting to August 30th, which maintains roughly the same spacing and doesn't introduce conflicts with the high school.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine with me. Any other comments?
I don't really have any comments other than I like the idea of us changing it. As a high school parent, it's been hard not to be able to be engaged in that school district and be. So as somebody who's normally engaged and knows what's going on, I have not liked that feeling. So I appreciate this. And, you know, I know we'll have meetings here and there where we hadn't planned them anyway, or hopefully not, but like, this is just a base calendar anyway. So I have, this looks great to me.
Yeah, I like it also. I have to say, several of our parents who are both LASD and MVLA parents who want to be more involved, like Jessica, have requested this. So I mean, if it's easy enough to do, I'm happy to accommodate them.
May I make a suggestion just from what I've heard for the August and September dates?
Yes.
And this is taking into account what Jessica just said as well, right? That we can, if we need an additional meeting, we can add it, right? That's not a problem. But I'm wondering if it won't make most sense for next school year to have the meeting on August 16, a meeting on August 30, and then a meeting on September 20.
Yeah.
Along the same lines, perhaps, well, maybe not along the same lines, but January also has 5 Mondays, and we don't do the first or the third Monday in January. There's a holiday there, but we push it out to the 18th. And I also have a question about the 6th and the 13th of June, why those are 1 week apart. That's all.
Okay.
None of these are earth shattering, you know, it's just, I'm just curious.
No, so I think that the 10th and the 24th are going to make the most sense in January, just because we are going to be coming off a winter break. Having a week to prepare before the 10th makes the most sense from a workflow perspective. The June meetings, Randy, do you want to talk a little bit about the calendar with regard to the June meetings?
Yeah, we need to get approved budget and LCAP and whatever other reports are required in by June 15th to the county. So I think we need to try to keep with our schedule that we've been having the last couple of years. Okay, one of the things we could do, I don't know if it makes any sense, but push up the May and June meetings to the 2nd. Oh no, it's already on the 2nd. What am I talking about? Make the 6th of June meeting on the 31st of May. That's, yeah. All right, that's fine. Whatever.
Okay.
So Jeff, I mean, I did look at the bylaws where it says second and fourth Mondays. If we change it to first and third Mondays, it sounds to me like we need to also put language in the bylaws, like where appropriate, like just to give us the latitude,
Allowing the variance, right?
allowing the variance.
Yep. Okay, we'll make sure we catch that.
Okay, any other comments? Then Jeff, can you please bring us back a revised calendar and revised bylaws?
Yep, we'll do next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Next agenda item. City of Los Altos School District School Subcommittee Meeting. The Board of Trustees will discuss and generate agenda items for the upcoming subcommittee meeting with the City of Los Altos. The subcommittee meets on a periodic basis to discuss and address items of mutual interest to both agencies. Mr. Bear.
Yes, so the City of Los Altos has contacted us. It has been a little while since we have met with them in this subcommittee. I know they've had a lot going on, which I think has probably delayed it. I'll remind you that Vladimir and Shali, you are the two committee members. But this is an opportunity for the board to discuss what would be topics of interest that we would want to bring up to the city. These are, I'll remind you, these are typically topics of mutual interest that we want to have some information flow back and forth and input to various situations going on in the city. And I'm sure the city would like the same. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Marcy, can you chime in? Have we identified a date? I know we were pushing back and forth a couple of dates.
Yes, I did hear back. They have given us the options of May 21st between 10 and 12 or 3 and 5, and also May 28th between 9 and 12.
Great, thank you. So Shali and Vladimir, maybe we can also look at which one of those might be best as well. So both Fridays, the 21st or the 28th. Okay, Shali, I'll turn it over to you.
Jessica?
I just find that time to be interesting, considering when we've done this before, it is a public meeting, and it's not very conducive to our parents coming necessarily. So just want to point that out. Those are daytime. And
yeah, that is true. They have, I think, always been
always in the night
meetings.
Anyway, just want to point that out.
We are happy to bring that back at the board's direction to the city.
Yeah, please.
I would like that. It doesn't work for engagement of our community if they're interested in the meeting.
Any other comments before I open it up to public comment? Okay, we will now take public comment on this agenda item. To do so, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. So just see if we have any takers tonight. I don't see any hands going up for public comments. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Board members, let's open discussion on this item.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Just the age-old opening of the back of vegan.
Gab.
There are 3 entrances at least to block by foot at least, and by car 1. But it does make it, even with that, block has its issues, but being is a nightmare. And it would be a nightmare even if we didn't have the charter school on the campus. So I think it's about time they found the agreement in the shed or wherever it is as it relates to that that parcel or easement across those properties in order to get that opened. I think now it's almost 40 years since it's been closed. 1972 was when it was closed.
Wow.
Anyway, that's
Let's get
it.
close to 50 years. Vladimir, did you want to say something?
No, Jessica beat me to it.
Steve?
So I know that the cities have been under a lot of pressure or mandate to increase public housing for various income brackets. It'd be good to understand where they're up to on that process. I'd like to advocate for it not to be in one place, but moved across the city boundaries as much as we can, because I think from an education point of view, having families mixed together is much better for us than have them segregated. So just understanding where they're headed with that and what their thought processes are there, I would love to understand that and where that's headed. And then there's always the safe route to school fund that we have every time, and where we can have crossing guards, where we can't, as we look at our schools reopening and what that looks like. It's been a very different year, and what is that going to look like for the following year would be good to understand. They just did some work on Cuesta that feeds Covington, and try to do some speed bumps, a lot of work there. They've created an interesting intersection between South Clark and Campbell. They're kind of advocating them to treat that almost like an intersection versus two separate intersections, mark the bike lanes a little better. Is there any stomach from the city side to do that so that kids know where to be, cars know going through that section, there's gonna be more children possibly flowing through that area. It'd be good to get that highlighted, I think. So it'd be great if they could help us understand what might other places in the city that might be something they could look at. That's all from my side.
Shelley, may I
Yeah.
add something to Steve's thought?
Yeah, of course.
Because something he said triggered a thought in my head, and that is we have begun discussions regarding coming out of the pandemic and kids returning to campus, all kids returning to campus. What's that going to look like? Are there going to be more kids traveling by car? Are there going to be less kids traveling by far? How might we partner with the city to help understand that and plan for that, right? Because it may change traffic patterns for a while or permanent, I don't know, but it would be good to have a partner in them as we work on that.
Thank you. Ryan?
I don't really have anything. Jeff, is there anything that we need to talk about relative to school resource officers and their elimination of that program?
So it would be good to get confirmation from them and understanding of them. My understanding was that was only true at Los Altos High School.
Okay.
But
See if they've got any other
in
changes
place at the elementary schools and junior high schools, but I think asking the question would be a good one.
Thank you. My question was really going to be about the safe routes to school and increasing the number of crossing guards, but I think Steve kind of covered that. So, is there any direction we need to give you?
No, I think we have what we typically do. We haven't done this for a while. What we typically do is we'll take what was said tonight and assemble a list, and then we'll merge that with the city's interest list and create an agenda. And then that will be the posted agenda for the meeting. This is a public meeting, right? So we do post agenda and make the public aware of it. And we'll also take the input regarding the date and time and continue that discussion as well.
So just to build on what Jessica said about making it easier for our parents to participate, if we can do it later in May, because today's the 10th and the 21st is only 11 days away, I want to make sure we give enough time for our parents to know that this is happening, what's on the agenda. I'm sure our parents will want to.
Right. And we are, I'll tell you, we are we did push on the original date. They had suggested end of July, beginning of August, and we had reminded them that that typically doesn't work because, you know, many parents are out of town at that time, and we really think this is important that they, everything Jessica said earlier. So that's when this date was pushed. We'll go back again with them and see if we can't push it out a little bit later, maybe into the first or second week of June.
Great. Thank you. All right, and that concludes the agenda items. We'll move on to board and administration comments. Sandra?
Alrighty, so last week we had our trimesterly DLAC, District English Language Advisory Council meeting, which was very productive, and we have some great next steps to try to get a big and exciting project completed this year. More information TBD. We also had our final curriculum council meeting of the year, and some information will be coming to you at the next board meeting about that. Our teachers this week are really preparing for our local assessments that are getting started in grades 3 through 8. So most of those will begin early next week and go through the end of May. So it is a busy season for sure. And wanted to just highlight right now our new teachers who are participating in induction to clear their credential are really just getting ready. Next week we begin our site shares, the time where they have an opportunity to reflect on their growth, their focus students, their inquiry projects that they've really focused on throughout this year of teaching. So it's always my favorite meeting after school to really hear from our newest teachers and how they've grown and what they've learned. And it's just such an awesome experience, but it takes a lot of work to prepare for. So I appreciate them doing that. And our awesome new teacher mentors, Sarah and Alex, are really working closely with them to make sure they have great information to share at those reflection meetings. I think that might be it right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Randy?
Well, I can't top that, so I'm going to pass.
Jeff? Oh, you're on mute.
I don't have anything additional.
Great. Steve? Nope. Jessica?
I attended a couple of the ice cream taco truck celebrations at the different campuses last week and enjoyed that. It always felt weird with the teachers thanking us. I'm like, no, we're thanking you. You're amazing. Stop thanking me. Anyway. It was good to have some normalcy there too. Not only to be there to celebrate, but it was normalcy. Yes, we're outside, we're keeping separate, but it was part of, us getting hope about our future in general. So I really enjoyed that. I also attended Sandra's DLAC meeting and found that to be a great meeting and a good thing. It was great to hear all the great things we're doing as it relates to our ELL students. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Vladimir?
No, nothing.
Brian?
So I also attended the DLAC meeting, and since Jessica won't say it, I'll say that Jessica is working on doing a big celebration for all of our English learners who are getting reclassified, having achieved English fluency, which is great since we didn't do a ceremony last year due to the pandemic. So thank you, Jessica. That's it.
All right. And for me, not too much. Attended challenge team, attended a chat board meeting. Kids in Common has their children's data book, and they have a few workshops related to that. So I've been attending those. And other than that, that's it for me. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting. See you next time. Bye. Good night.